Hello, all, and welcome to this week's edition of Blabbit. Blabbit's where we bring experts in to pick their brains and get some of their expert knowledge. We're fortunate this week to have James Lewis, esteemed real estate investor, with us. For anyone that's new to Blabbit, my name is Glenn Ingram. I've been working with and helping train people in the sales spectrum for the last 20 years, trying to help them listen better so that they can influence better. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing well, Glenn. It's great to see you, and James, it's great to see you as well. I'm going to
Hey,
give
thank you.
everyone. I'm going to give everyone a little bio on me if this is your first time. And if it is your first time, we just want to mention that Blabbit is sponsored by Open Doors, which is your premier corporate communication channel for maximizing employee engagement. Well, after that spiel, it would probably be not too far-fetched a guess to imagine that I am a presentation and public speaking coach out of New York City. I help people get over any sort of public speaking anxiety, become more clear, and remove some of those unwanted speech habits so they can come across with clarity, authenticity, trust, persuasion, all of those beautiful things. How are you doing, James? It's great to see you today.
Thank you. I should have talked to you before we got on today.
I don't know. I say who I am, but I'm not so sure.
I'm well. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah.
And you're going to pick my brain. Go at it.
Okay. Well, you know what? Could you give everyone a little bit of a bio on you, just so they have a framing of what today's Blabbit is going to be about?
Sure, that'd be great. I've been a real estate investor for over 30 years, mostly in residential real estate, some development, some commercial. I think today, or what I can bring to the table and help others that I do, is explain or maybe help guide through how to invest in real estate in this market. I also own a trust deed mortgage company. So what that is a private money mortgage company where traditional financing doesn't work. People will call my company and we lend them the money. We also have investors that invest in the trust deeds. So it's a win-win situation in the trust deed business. And doing some coaching right now with some real estate agents on how to work with real estate investors like myself. So that's fun.
Well, awesome, Jim. Thanks a lot for joining us. So let's just jump in with both feet. I want to talk about investing in real estate and a maybe economy that's not as positive as it had been. We all know it's easy when prices are going up to buy something, fix something, and flip something.
Right.
But to anyone that's looking to invest in an economy that maybe supplies outweighing demand for the first time in a couple of years or has a possibility to do so, maybe increasing interest rates, what are some pitfalls that you would avoid when investing in real estate in the current market with maybe not knowing exactly what's going to be 3, 6, 9 months from now?
Yeah, that's a good question, Glenn. And again, pre-COVID, we're going back to a pre-COVID market right now. I don't think some areas might be falling. That's the more high end. There's still good loans out there, unlike we had the crash in 2008, 2007. There's a crash. There's a problem with getting money. Right now, money is not tight. So those first time buyers or move up buyers, they still can afford a home. So the market it's not that bad, but again, I think everyone's going to wait to see what happens at the end of the year because of the recession that we're in. But the wholesalers, it was called wholesalers. One thing, if people out there are watching this, I'm not a wholesaler. And this is what they did. People are like real estate investors, wholesalers. They're gaming on the appreciation. I've never invested in real estate where I'm hoping the property's going to appreciate. And that's what we've seen. We've seen these TV shows. We've seen these seminars where people will tie up a property and then try to find another buyer. And as they do that, there's appreciation. I mean, some areas like in Palm Springs, there's an area called Indian Wells. It's appreciated 45% in 2 years. Now, anyone can be a real estate investor, right? Today is a lot different. So if I was investing in real estate, and I'm going to speak about not the wholesaler, I'm not going to a seminar, I'm not tying up someone's property. Number one thing, work out of integrity. Okay, no matter what you do. And when you see that, you're working out of integrity. You're not trying to get one over on someone. It's a win-win solution. I just did a transaction here in Southern California in Laguna Hills. The gentleman, he wanted to get out. He wanted to move to the Carolinas. He wanted to start a new life. I said, dude, you know you can go in, fix the pool, you can paint the house, you can make money on this house. He said, I just want out. And so that was the win-win solution was, how can I help you? He needed money in order to put a deposit down in North Carolina. So I put the deposit in, I advanced the deposit. He was able to go out, find a house in the Carolinas. I ended up closing his house after he bought his house in the Carolinas and turned it around, cleaned it up, put a new pool in, cleaned it up, and I made a profit. He was happy. He's in the Carolinas enjoying a new life. So to start, you must think about integrity, win-win, and then like the pitfalls. I mean, what to buy, what not to buy.
Mm-hmm. And so in terms of you providing a transaction like the one you just described, is the collateral always owning a home prior to, or is there some other way that this works? In other words, you did mention first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
What are some of the options that they would have? Okay,
well, a first-time home buyer, I would buy a duplex or units if I was starting, and I did that as a kid in 1988. My first property was a duplex near a college town.
So if I'm like 10 years old.
Thank you. And this is not this Southern California look, right? Well, anyways, you do the a duplex, or what I did. My nephew and his wife, brand new wife, they're in Ohio. They're in Worcester, Ohio, and they have a condo, and they went to buy a house because that's where they're going to start their family. And I suggested, hey, keep the condo, don't sell the condo, because it was in a good school district. So look, if I'm a new first-time home buyer, look for a good school district that's you think is going to be around there for 15, 20 years. It's good. If you have a good school district, you'll never go wrong. And take advantage of these interest rates. I think they're at like 5.25, not like 2.5 during COVID, but 5.25. That's good money. That's really good money.
Well, and we talk about first-time home buyers. I think a lot of people think that it's the first time I've ever purchased a home. But I know I came into and realized here a few years ago that if you haven't had a mortgage in 2 years,
right,
you reclassify as a first-time home buyer. Are there any other little secrets like that, or things that people may not be aware of that could help them do a real estate acquisition?
Yeah, well, yes. A lot of people think, oh, I need 20% down. As you know, a first-time home buyer there's a lot of first-time home buyer products out there, statewide, countrywide, citywide, that assist first-time home buyers. So you have a city that's wants to it's urbanized and wants to get more young people downtown. You're going to have a lot of incentives that you don't have to have 20%. You could sometimes get in with nothing down, and that's huge. But a lot of people, I always hear, "Oh, I want to get 20% down," or you don't need the 20% down. You can get in with very little money.
Aren't there a lot of other neighborhoods like that too that are maybe regentrifying or changing or whatever that will offer different type of grant or incentives to people as they're trying to change the neighborhood to help new people get into those homes as well?
That's correct. And professions. There's I know years ago, I don't know now, I've been out of this market, this mortgage market, but the police officer next door, you also had a teacher next door and nurse next door. So they were incentivizing people to move into the certain area professionally, to get. Hey, let's face it, that first-time home buyer, those young people, they would be fueling the market because you're selling, and then you can move up. So it's a trickle up effect, if you will.
Mm-hmm. All right. So tell us a little bit, James, about what is a trust deed? I mean, what is that concept? That's something that's new to my ears. I know the word deed and I know the word trust, but I've never actually heard them together. So if you could educate both me and our listeners, that would be much appreciated.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. It's interesting because when I started trust deed investing, I was like, I didn't know really anything about it. And I started this company in about 2009, 2010, and I had to educate people what a trust deed was. And a trust deed is used in non-judicial states. I believe New York is a mortgage state, so it would be a mortgage, not a trust deed. California, we're a trust deed state, where it's the instrument used when you lend money. It's what's recorded on the property. So you have a grant deed, you have a title of the property, a grant deed, and you have a note on a mortgage, if you will. A lot of people who live in mortgage states, it's basically a mortgage. So you become the bank. So if you can start with $10,000 and start investing in trust deeds. And what I do, what my company does, people say, oh, that could be risky. I do first trust deeds. So I do first mortgages. So I'm lending money to an individual based on equity. So their value of their property. So a property is worth $100,000. We're going up to $70,000 to lend the money. So we have a 30%, $30,000 cushion. And the return, it's mailbox money. Basically, you don't have to worry. A lot of people, oh, I don't want to own rental properties because, oh, I don't want that call at 1 a.m. I mean, I've owned rental properties and I've had maybe one call in 30 years at 1 a.m. and it was because the fire department was coming. I mean, that's about, so, people always are negative about investments. So, okay, you don't want to own real estate. You don't want to participate in the 1 a.m. phone call. Invest in a trust deed. It's wonderful. And Wall Street won't tell you about it because why? They want you to invest in stocks that it's just paper. At least a trust deed is substantial and you're lending and it's secured to real estate. So it's not a secured investment, so I don't get in trouble by the feds. It is secured to real estate. That's what the trust deed is, the instrument that secures your money to the real estate.
So how much of a commitment when you say investing in trust deeds, how much of a commitment is involved there? I don't think I'm quite clear about at what level or levels people can participate in this.
Well, as little as 10,000, and maybe from me, from others, it's called fractionalized interest. So someone can get involved. It's a good way. You earn about, right now, today, trust deeds are going at 10 and a half. A couple of months ago, 8% on your money. The commitment is usually written for a year. Some of them are written for 3 years. So it's almost like a CD because you tie your money up. Although a trust deed is a little liquid because if you want it out, you call me and say, hey, man, I need my money. I'm getting married or something like that. Yeah, I'll get your money out. So it's somewhat liquid and without a penalty. You can get out without a penalty. But you can get involved in trust deeds. Just call your local private money lender in your area and find out, hey, do you fractionalize? And make sure, I can say this to people, because I've seen people lend money out and they don't get anything back. They get like a promissory note. No. You want that note secured to something, some piece of real estate. And do your due diligence in a sense where find out roughly what it's worth, but your broker, the person structuring it, has a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that when you give them the money, it's going on a piece of property. Like I never touch the money. It goes into an escrow account. But there's funds like a mortgage fund that you can get into as little as, again, 10,000, maybe 5, I don't know, but it works. I mean, if you want to dabble into that kind of thing.
So for the layperson, maybe I'm needing to remodel a home. Maybe I want to do this work that you were talking about with that other purchase where you redid the pool and stuff like that. I could borrow that money from you. This is like a lien on my property that says I can't do anything without this. And if I default on the agreement of 1 year or 3 years, then now you own the property?
We'll have to go through the foreclosure process, which in California and those states that are non-judicial would be a foreclosure process. And it's a 90 days default. And then after, I think they're changing laws all the time, but I think it's usually 21 days for the sale. But I would usually call, hey, like we lend out. I've only had to foreclose on one property out of, 500 transactions I've done, only one. And it's because you're going to have equity. I mean, we're not going to, there's been a case, there's been a lawsuit here in LA, and I know the company, what they did is called lend to own. So they lend you the money hoping and maybe knowing that you're not going to be able to pay it back so they can own it, which they got stung, and there was a lawsuit against that. They lost.
Well, isn't that sort of predatory behavior?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that term lend to own, I mean, just it killed them because they knew what they were doing. They were not working the best interest of the client that came and asked for the money.
Now let's circle back around to a comment you made earlier about purchasing a multi-unit property. Yes. Because a real estate agent told me about this probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it was quite shocking to me that in neighborhoods where you have single family and multifamily, or duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, that your price per square foot on the multi-unit is traditionally less than your price per square foot to have on a single unit home. So in lots of instances, can you purchase that and use some of the revenues from your other units to make you have a smaller or maybe no mortgage payment because you're the person that invested in a duplex, triplex, quadplex, or something like that?
Well, sure, yeah, and it really depends on the area. Sometimes buildings or properties are worth more than you can rent, or they're like it's cheaper to rent than it is to buy. I mean, my daughter's in Newport Beach, California. She's on she's a CPA. Heck, her income that she makes isn't going to buy that $1.5 million house, but she has enough to rent. It's cheaper to rent it than it is to buy it. So now she's a renter, but now I'm saying, hey, she's younger, and I said, hey, you got to get involved in something like buying a unit and renting it out. But your question is, it's a great strategy to have. And here's what happens. Young people, because I have a lot of nieces and nephews out there who are in their 20s and 30s, they see all this social media, and they want to get the big house right away. I mean, buy a little condo like my nephew did, start small, and then build up, just build up. I mean, that's what I did. And then, I just started pyramid myself up. And that's my big suggestion. And good schools. Got to buy in good schools.
Hey, Paul, we have John Regula, I think, asking a question that maybe you kind of answered, Jim. Maybe there's something else. And he says, what's the biggest challenge for young people looking to enter in the industry?
Okay. Into the industry of real estate?
I don't know if he's talking about real estate or investment. Maybe he can clarify that a little bit more. But let's say he's talking about getting into real estate investment.
Okay, there's a lot of challenges, but I'm telling you, the big one thing is that if you want to become a real estate investor, and I've said this many times, you find the deal, the money will come. So people always say, oh, I don't have the money to start. And Robert Allen, great author, he wrote a few books in the 80s, Nothing Down, The Challenge. I know Robert Allen. I actually went to one of his seminars in 1991. Great books. I mean, he was my college professor, and I've told him this. And that is, in the challenge, he wrote these books. He took people out of a unemployment line in St. Louis and said, hey, you want to be a real estate investor? And some of the people said, I don't know. I don't want to lose my place in line. Yeah. So individuals give up negative thoughts. I can't do it because I don't have the money, or I'm too young, or I'm not educated. You find the deal, and the money will come. Now, how do you find the deal? You take a certain area, and I'm not talking about living in New York and California and buying something in, Texas or Arizona or the Carolinas, and you're an absentee owner and you don't know what's going on. I'm saying go to your area where you are, where you shop, where you go to the movies, where you get a coffee, or pick out a certain other area that you know of that has a good school district, or maybe an up and coming area, or it's going to, they're cleaning it up. There's a lot of federal money going in there to clean up the neighborhoods. You go and you find, and you take that area and you figure out how much rents will be, how much properties sell for, so that you control that area. You know everything about that area. And when you find a deal, meaning you know the value. So once you understand value, you'll never lose. And there's no challenge then. Because once you understand the value of real estate in that particular area, you know if a property comes available and it's under market, it's under value, you know that's a good deal. So guess what? You can find the money. You get on the phone, you talk to relatives, you talk to friends, you put an ad in wherever, Instagram, you'll find the money because it's such a good deal. You have to understand value. If you understand value, you'll never lose. And guess what? All that negativity in your head goes away because you know the value, you're strong, and you believe. And that's where you start. And that's the hurdle that people need. The biggest hurdle people need to go over is the negative chatter in their head.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about this investment, James, you're not necessarily talking about investing in a property that you will then subsequently live in. It can be something that
Right.
that's in your area, but you're the lead investor on that. In other words, you bring everyone has a piece of it. Would your company be interested, and this probably is an obvious question, in someone bringing a value like that to your doorstep and saying,
Well,
I'm looking.
I would partner up, but if it's someone out of state now, I'm sorry, I can help them. Give me a call and I'll tell them what to do. But yeah, that's what usually happens. You're the lead person. You find the deal, the money will come. Now, the general split is 50-50. Mm-hmm. Investor brings all the money in. The guy that found the deal does all the work, and they split it 50-50. That's generally what happens. And there's real estate agents that find deals as well for you. You talk to real estate agents, they'll find deals.
Now, when you say all the work, you're talking about the maintenance, finding the renters, all of that.
Well, yeah, there's two kinds of real estate investing strategies. One is fix and flip or long-term hold. Depends what you want to do. If I'm a young kid, but John asked if I'm a young kid, I'd probably do the fix and flip to get some money rolling. But again, I don't like partners on long-term holds. I'm sorry, I don't want that commitment. Maybe it might be a commitment though. But I just don't like that long-term commitment. If we're doing a real estate opportunity where you're talking 4 to 6 months, yeah, I'll bring partners in and do partners, and I don't mind partnering, but not on a long-term hold. Long-term hold, I would suggest getting a mortgage loan, like we talked about, getting a first-time homebuyer loan or whatever.
Okay.
Well, and talking about that long-term hold, I have a gentleman that I've known in Omaha, Nebraska for years that started a couple years ago where he would buy maybe a home that's maybe not seen its best days in a while, purchase it with cash, rehab it, and then now he can take it to the bank and get a loan on it because now it has more value, and then take that money, go buy another one, and just keep doing the cycle. And is that a good model to kind of build up and get into the investment rental market?
Perfect model, especially if there's someone that has a regular 9-to-5 job or has a regular career. Perfect strategy. And I know a gentleman who his mother-in-law told him this when he was young: buy and hold, buy one house a year. This guy now he's in his late 50s. He has 25 homes. Doesn't sound like buy one house a year and just don't kill yourself. Enjoy life. Especially these young kids, they're getting bombarded with social media, and let's say you're newly married. Don't put the stress on the marriage. Buy one house a year. You're going to be fine. Time takes care of itself. So that your buddy, great strategy.
All right. So I'm still a little. I guess I'm one of those people who never wanted the burden of having to oversee a property or do this and that. What are some of the techniques for lessening that burden if you are the person who is not necessarily the money investor, but you're the sort of the sweat equity investor? Are you destined to be basically the landlord, and you're saying it's not as bad as people make it out to be? Is that what it is?
It's not. It's not. You're saying if you're like you're not astute of you don't being a landlord?
Yeah, in other words, you want to be a property owner, you want to be an investor, but you're really shying away from that. How am I going to fix the plumbing? How am I going to do this, that? Obviously, you're going to hire people, but so you can't be averse to taking on that responsibility. That's part of the deal.
Right. Well, what a lot of I don't know, like holiday places, like vacation places, like Mammoth or Mammoth Mountain at the ski resort, or Aspen, or down in Florida. Another strategy could be, if you don't want partners, is to buy something, to own something, and then give it to a management company, a vacation rental, like in Hilton Head. They're hot on vacation rentals. I mean, probably every property. And a Hilton Head, I was just looked at one there. Someone called me about. You have the management company, and the management fees are sort of high, but they take care of everything. So you get the tax advantage. You're rolling, you're making money. You get the tax advantage for owning that rental, and then maybe you get to enjoy it, a month or two with your, out of the year, and you're making money, offsetting the payment, or it's taking care of itself, and then you have the tax advantage, and maybe you can use it, a few times a year. That's more of a, different strategy to take. But if you don't want to do it, you team up with someone or invest in trust deeds, get your automatic 10 or 12, and let that person worry about the phone call at 1 a.m. that doesn't happen in 30 years.
Right.
But again, I like vacation rental, but the management companies, they jam you if you're far away. If would be near New York City, Poconos, or
well, yeah, that would be certainly.
Yeah. Or the shore, or like the Jersey Shore or something.
Yeah,
where all the rich people live.
Right.
Hey, I don't know. That's not really truthful, because I live at the Jersey Shore.
So you do the Jersey Shore, you rent it out, and you can manage it yourself. With Airbnb and VRBO makes it easier. And I like VRBO better than Airbnb. I have rentals in Palm Springs, vacation rentals there.
Okay.
So it just works out better. You get a different clientele. That's interesting. So I had units in Orange, California, and I'm getting hassled. Like this one guy in California, the laws favor the tenant, and the guy tells me, I remember it was Easter or Mother's Day, I forget which one. It was a Sunday morning, and the guy basically told me, "Yeah, I'm not going to pay you. It's going to take X amount of days to get me out of here." And he knew he was the scam of the scam. He used a different social security number, and that's when I ran the credit. I thought he was a good tenant, and I'm going, I'm done with these units, because he knew how to operate it so he can stay in the property. But I have a vacation one, my first vacation rental in the desert in Rancho Mirage. It was the tenant was a professor from Italy. Totally different kind of tenant. So, if you want to get you want to get dirty and get those big apartment buildings and fix them up and, create value, that's a good way to go. And people have been very successful doing that. And you can go that route. And I know a lot of guys made millions of dollars doing big apartment buildings. But if you want to start maybe little vacation, do a vacation rental and get your feet wet, you're going to have a different clientele on the vacation rental.
Well, and with vacation rentals, isn't it important to kind of learn and find out the neighborhoods and stuff like this? Because different cities have different rules about vacation rentals. Like Las Vegas, you have to rent for at least 30 days unless you're inside the city, because they're trying to protect the hotel market. I know in Palm Springs a few years ago, they went to that thing I think within Palm Springs state limits, where you have to rent for at least 30 days at a time or something like that.
Palm Springs is different. They have this, and like in San Clemente, there's a certain zone. So yeah, definitely. Good point, Glenn. If you're going to do vacation rental, find out. Even an HOA, like a condo might have HOA rules about limiting vacation rental. There's one area, and there's areas, I don't know. I know in California, there are areas like this. They were once county, and then the cities took them over. annexed them over to the cities and split it up, but that county still there is no jurisdiction. So like in Bermuda Dunes out in Palm Springs, there's no city jurisdiction, it's county, and you can do it less than 30-day rental. But yeah, great point. You can get stung if you can't rent it out a 30-day rental might work as well.
Well, and let me ask you one more question about California, because I love to hate that state. And looking at making acquisitions there, a lot of times I think it's just because some real estate agents are lazy because they make so much money off transactions there. You can't get the HOA information until you make an offer. Is there a way around that to be able to get the documents, the rules and stuff like that of HOAs prior to entering into an agreement for a multi-unit, a condo, a townhouse, and things like that?
Yeah, what I do is I go walk down to the next neighbor, knock on the door, and ask.
Yeah,
unfortunately, that's the only way you're going to get it. Is to ask a neighbor, and people are usually good to help. That's what I've learned with the the trustee market. I look at every single property we lend on. So when I do that, I go knock on the neighbors' doors and I say, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on in this neighborhood?" There was a shooting over here yesterday. Well, might affect the house value. So, but you're right.
But really, based on some of the things that you've spoken about already here, James, isn't that could be a good thing? It could be a bad thing. It depends on where you are in the cycle. It really depends.
That's true.
So you have to look at everything like, well, that could actually make this a better property to buy at this point, and you're sort of I guess gambling on the fact that it will get better, or you're not gambling, but you're looking at other factors beside that.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's back to the win-win. Okay. This person might be, the seller of that property or something might be, want to get out. So, and it is somewhat a gamble. I personally don't gamble when I go to Vegas. People say, why? Well, my whole life's a gamble. I mean, this real estate investing is a gamble, but if you understand value, you become the house. And when you lend the money, you become the house because everything's working in your favor.
So you're saying some people may not be truthful when trying to sell something and disclose everything?
Oh, it happens all the time.
It's interesting. I'd never stopped to think that places or vehicles like Airbnb and Vrbo, that they can't be used under certain restrictions. I was not even aware of that, and I'm not sure if our audience is or was either. We tend to look in certain places for these for the ability to utilize that, not thinking for a second, wait a minute, there's a restriction. All right, I'll have to let my wife know.
Welcome to the Weird Coast.
Well, that's everywhere. That's down in Florida too. They've got problems down in Florida.
Yeah,
you're doing that. The less than 30 days. But again, I mean, it just means you're going to rent it out. Like Palm Springs does it, where you have a permit, and it's to tax and make money. God bless you, Palm Springs, but and it's to protect the neighborhoods. There's like sometimes you get I had a property once, and they signed an agreement that they're going to use the property for Coachella, and it was going to be like 4 or 5 people, ended up being 15 to 20 people. I mean, think if you're the neighbor next door and you're living in that house and you got this major party going on. So that's what Palm Springs is trying to limit. That's what San Clemente was trying to limit. I think it has to be a balance though, because there's still a need. And, some people need a house, would rather live in a house than rent a hotel.
So it's a 30-day restriction. In other words, nobody in these restricted areas rents during the month of February. They just, because there's not enough days.
You get a bonus in January or March, one or the other.
Right. You pull from the other, from one or the other.
All right, Jim, let's talk about HOA restrictions a little bit sometimes with regards to mortgages and with purchasing. Yeah. And I guess the moral for this is Laguna Woods in Southern California. Okay. For those watching, and I'm sure Jim's going to share this with me.
I'm too young for Laguna Woods. Thank you.
Well, Jim explained this to me, so let's kind of dig in this a little bit, if you will, Jim. In Laguna Woods, it's a predominantly over 55 communities.
Yes.
You have a lot of people that have purchased condos there for one reason. You get discounted golf when you own a condo in the community and they don't move in. So
Yeah.
you have HOAs that won't allow people then to get a mortgage because they didn't want to do this, or they're not sharing the documents so you can qualify for a mortgage because they want owner occupants to balance it out. So a lot of times in HOAs, don't you have percentages of owner occupants versus rentals and stuff like that? Is that kind of what you were alluding to earlier?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that percentages is more, you walk the neighborhood, you figure it out. If it's going to be more predominantly non-owner occupied, then what you're going to find out is it's somewhat values are lower. I don't know why, but values are lower because I think the absentee owner that wants to just go ahead and rent it out isn't taking care of the property, or the HOA management company isn't taking care of the property as much as it should. But it's interesting you ask that, because the lender, so if you're going to get a mortgage loan and you go to an HOA, there's a questionnaire. And one of the things on the questionnaire is how many owner occupied units are there in the association, in the project, in the complex. And some lenders will not lend if that ratio is too high. Well, too low. So good thinking.
All kinds of interesting things you have to look at when purchasing or acquiring real estate that most of us never think about.
Yeah, but it is. But guess what? That's why you have a real estate professional. I mean, seriously, if you find a good real estate agent, he or she's going to know what to do and what not to do, and like what to look for. And again, I mean, there's some bad apples. There's some bad apples in my profession and in real estate agents, but you got to find that agent, that real estate agent that knows what they're doing. And a lot of real estate agents, I think, and I believe, and you can call me real estate agents and I'll tell you if you are or not, it's analysis paralysis. They analyze too much and they don't take action. Okay. So that, when I told you about not going on and knocking on the doors of neighbors, that's what a lot of real estate agents, that's what they do. Good ones that I work with. Mm-hmm. So you find yourself a good real estate agent, they're going to find you a deal. If you're just starting out, they're going to find you a deal, an opportunity, a first time or investment. Now, a lot of them don't believe, like, our first in the discussion here at the beginning was, you don't have any money and you're going to get the money. A lot of them, and I've seen them say, oh, you can't get this house. You can't. And they just don't give you a time of the day. There will be someone out there that will help you. A real estate agent will be there and will believe that you can do it and will do it. And they'll be out there helping you. That's huge.
I have that personal experience. When I bought, my first home, I was probably 24, 25. Yeah. And I remember talking with the local real estate agents, because we bought something locally, a single family home. Mm-hmm. And we wanted it, they wanted it. And then all the numbers came in and they said, there's no way that you can afford this house. And I said, give me 48 hours and I'll be back. Nice. I'll be back with the mortgage. And I did. So, nice. It's just, the real estate agents literally said, there's no way. What are you doing here? What do you think you're, and they had that traditional thinking. I had the non-traditional thinking. Of course, I also had the momentum of being 25 years old. Just There was no wall I wouldn't go through. Perfect. So would you say that is still true to this day, even though some of us are a little bruised from going through walls?
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because the market that we had where everyone was making, offers on their houses, this is interesting because you would have a house, you'd have 30 offers on a house. And the agents and including myself, when I would have done some of transactions as an investor, is what offer do you take? Okay. So you have 30 offers, you have a house listed for 700 and you have 30 offers and 20 of those offers are over 700. Let's say they're under 8, but they're over 7. Which offer would you take?
I don't know.
A few of them are cash, cash offer. You take the one that's most motivated. Even if it's less money, take the buyer that's more motivated than any other buyer.
Okay. So it's not just run toward the cash?
I don't know.
Right.
No. And a real estate agent, if he or she wants to get that seller, you say to the seller, you present it. You have to be transparent. You say, look, we have an 800 offer and we have a 780 offer, but the 780 really wants it because of GGG. I remember I sold a house and it was airline pilot, his spouse, they had 4 kids moving. They sold their house in Las Vegas. They want to come to California. They had no house. That's highly motivated.
That's highly motivated. Yeah.
There was a park. There was a park in the back of there was a yard with a fence that goes to a park. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Right.
There was a highly motivated buyer, and I went with that buyer instead of another buyer who, they could come or go. You never know. But you go with like if you were motivated at 24, you're my buyer, right? Mm-hmm. A motivated buyer is better than the cash.
Yeah, they didn't know it at the time. But I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when you talk about finding real estate agents and some paralysis by analysis, and I think that's fair about every industry out there. That's just people in general are like that. So if John were to get on the phone that asked the last question and say, James, how do I find a real estate agent? What questions do I ask? What would be some advice you would give somebody to find a real estate agent that's going to go above and beyond?
Oh, gosh. I personally work out of feeling rather than, logic. But I would go, again, as we mentioned about the neighborhood, choosing a neighborhood, looking at a neighborhood. I would go to open houses. And it was a couple of years ago, you couldn't go to open houses because of COVID. But now open houses are now open. And I would go to open houses and just talk to that agent that's sitting at open. Usually, here's what I've seen in 30 years. Usually, the agent will sit the open house who has the listing the first weekend. And then he or she farms it out to a more younger, aggressive agent. I shouldn't say a more aggressive, but just a newbie, if you will. Mm-hmm. So you have to, it's like interviewing for a job and hiring people. You have to figure out if this newbie is hungry or they're just, they're afraid to take action. So I would do that. I would find out who's marketing in that area. And usually like the big hitters, like there's one, her name's Katrina Crane. She's in San Clemente. She's a big hitter. She knew me personally before she got into real estate. She gets into real estate. She's really a highly successful real estate agent. She called me about a real estate investment. Now that's unheard of because those big hitters, those multi-million-dollar producers, they're usually they don't work with investors like me because they have their clients. And this is what I'm coaching an agent. She wants to be able to, it's basically, I think it's supplementing your income if you have a real estate investor in your back pocket. Because now you're showing properties to first-time home buyers and traditional buyers, but you always have that investor with the cash that can jump on a deal. That's what Katrina does with me. If that buyer can't work out, she's got a listing, she calls me, hey, you want the deal? But if I'm starting out, that's what I look for. I would look for a big hitter if I was going to buy traditional. And then I would find and sort of interview through that process of open houses and find out what's going on. And you can look up on the, you don't have MLS. I was going to say, find out how many transactions they've done, but ask the agent, hey, what have you been doing? What kind of work have you done? I mean, and I'm not saying that those newbies, I'm sorry, you got to get into the market somehow, and you can, but you got to be willing to take action. And that's what I preach to real estate agents who ask me, hey, how do I get started? Take action. Mm-hmm. Knock on doors, get a buyer, take a buyer, I mean, they have this lingo in the real estate agents, buyers are liars. And no, they're just looking for, they're looking for an agent to work with. There's a happy partnership there if you can.
Right. All right. So this is a topic that has been coming up pretty consistently on various Blabbit episodes, and that is the effect of hybrid work and people moving and relocating and whatnot. And I realize, James, that you're primarily on the West Coast. I don't want that statement to restrict anything that you're going to say, because I'm sure that you understand more of a larger picture, a more national picture. Are there any trends that you're seeing? Are there any parts of the U.S. that are benefiting from this new hybrid workplace or suffering from it, in your opinion?
Think Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, they're all benefiting. You have California, New Yorkers moving out because they're taking their high prices, they're coming and they're buying something else. I have a gentleman who moved from California to Florida. He's looking at real estate, and I'm assisting him in trying to find something for him and his family. It's interesting. The high-end stuff, if you want to buy in Florida, I'd probably wait to the end of the year and see where this market, see where their values are going. But they're cutting prices, stuff million, low millions, $100,000, $200,000 on the intercoastal. So it has benefited. I think everywhere benefited because the hybrid living, people are, they want home ownership. They want to feel, they want that safety net. And then people like Palm Springs went crazy. Indian Wells went crazy because they get out of the big city. You don't have to work. Now you can work anywhere. I think we'll look back on this, on what happened and like the trends, shopping online. There's going to be more people shopping online, just everything. But in the real estate though, if it was me, and it is me, because I'm holding off, I'm not buying anything for 90 days. I'm going to see where this thing shakes out. Now, if you're a first-time home buyer and need to buy something, like my buddy down in Florida, he needs to buy something to get into the school district. Then buy something. You're not going to lose. And like when people say, I don't want to buy anything because, it's going to go down. Hey, you know what? If you're going to be selling in the next 3 years, worry about it going down. Okay. If you're not, just buy the thing, enjoy your life.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, just one more quick one, Glenn, and that is, how come, if you're talking about this mass exodus from both California and New York, how come the prices here in New Jersey and New York and the rentals and everything are so sky high? If people are leaving, are we waiting for the bottom to drop out? I literally have always been a commuter into New York. My office is being in New York City, but I live less than 70 miles from the city, and prices they're showing no sign of going down.
Well, one thing is, where are you going to put your money? So put it in real estate. And there's a lot of out here. There's a lot of international money. A lot of money coming in from China. Believe it or not, they're buying like Glenn, Orange County. They're buying certain areas. I don't know what's going on in New York, but if I have money, what do you do? What are you going to do with it? The stock market to fight a recession, you buy what? Gold or real estate.
Yes.
So and the rentals are just crazy. The rental market's just crazy, and I've heard it's crazy there too.
Oh yeah.
Anywhere where you have demand outweighing supply, they're not building new apartments in Orange County. They're probably not building new apartments in New York. And You have people that grew up in those areas that are insane and don't know what real life is and what normal life is anywhere in the country. So they just assume this is what you have to do. Now, with this, Jim, I know you said to invest now, but let me ask you this. If I gave some people bad advice, I know some people that are, up in age, looking to sell in one place and move to another place. And even if it's Phoenix, even if it's Vegas or Southern California, my advice was rent a damn place for a year. See what's going to happen, and then buy something next year, especially if you're moving to another location. Because in my experience, when I moved from Nebraska to California to Nevada, until you live in a place for at least a month or 2 months, you really don't know that neighborhood.
I agree.
Know your role, find out the area, the lay of the land, and then make an informed decision.
I agree. I totally agree. And I say this, and this is funny. As I was thinking about writing a book about this, it's like, if you have to go buy milk and bread at 10 o'clock at night, okay, is that where you want to live? Mm-hmm. Think about it. If you're out on a farm, I want to go live on a farm. Okay, you got to go buy milk and bread at 10 o'clock at night. Are you willing to drive an hour to go get milk and bread? Or if you're in this high rise, you're going to go down and buy milk and bread. Are you going to be safe at 10 o'clock at night? And I agree. Take a year, whatever it is. My buddy moved from Michigan, New York Times bestselling author, Brian Moran. Shout out to Brian. He moved from Michigan to Scottsdale and he rented. I mean, he was like jonesing on buying something. I said, dude, hold off and see like what you like. And he ended up holding off. He rented and found a nice piece of property in Carefree. So yeah, I agree, Glenn. Yeah, don't, and times are changed. Like, home ownership with this, the hybrid work. I mean, people are renting and going to another city and find out where they're going to land. It's wonderful to have that freedom.
Oh yeah. It changed so many things for me, just mindset. It used to be, no, I'm locked in. This is where my people are. This is where my business is. And now it's what? I can go anywhere.
Yeah. Huge paradigm shift, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's great. It's good to grow.
But the best part about this was to be able to use the business mullet. And that's what I called it when 2020, when all of a sudden I had been on 5 of these video calls a day and it had been 6 hours. And I looked down, I had a polo up top and pajamas down below.
I will not stand up. Please don't either.
Hey, you know what? It's comfort and convenience these days. So, but I think one thing that we've learned, or at least I have learned, is sometimes it's okay to step a little outside of your comfort zone to make progress.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah. So we appreciate you giving us that insight here today, James.
Oh,
really,
thanks for having me.
This has been a very different Blabbit.
Yes.
Very different.
I put on my Instagram that I was blabbing on Blabbit. So I hope I blabbed enough.
Oh,
You did.
Yeah.
You were great. Thank you very much for joining us today, James.
Thank you.
Should anybody want to get some more of those words of wisdom for you, what's the best way to contact you?
Probably on Instagram, right? I mean, what should I do, Glenn? Instagram, DM me.
Instagram, LinkedIn, maybe a website, anything like that, buddy.
Oh, website, palmdesertcapital.com. And there's a phone number there. You can call me or just DM me. Then I have a Twitter account, Palm Desert Capital. What's my Instagram? Trust Deeds, Lewis Trust Deeds, _
Lewis _ Yeah, Trust Deeds, right.
Trust Deeds. Okay, perfect. That's it. DM me there, people.
Got it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for joining us. This was a great week. Everyone, we'll see you back here on the same channels, same time next week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.